The key thing about Paddington is location, and you'll know that if you've invested in West End Gate or you're involved in any way in West End Gate. And we've got the beauty of Little Venice and the walk through the canal and Maida Vale here, and then Paddington Central here. Obviously the station, great transport connections. I'm sure you're aware you can walk from Paddington through all the parks. So you do, Hyde Park, Kensington Gardens, onto Green Park, onto St James's Park, and out onto Horse Guards Parade. 2.5 million square feet of new commercials been delivered, and there's another 1.35 million in the pipeline. On the resi side, there's 3 different hotels, 1 open and 2 under construction at the moment in the Paddington area. We've got 5 new bridges, and some of them are public art as well, plus 1,000 metres, over 1,000 metres of new towpath. There are about 50 to 60 new companies that have moved to Paddington. There are clusters, there are sort of fintech clusters, there's life sciences clusters. Little Venice is on your doorstep. You're probably even closer to Little Venice than some of the Paddington shots I showed earlier. A really beautiful, tranquil space. So we've got 5 different floating restaurants, 1 floating hotel, and that's one of the key things about this location as well, is the proximity to the water and the value that adds in terms of well-being. Big programme of activities that are free and open, so we have things like dragon boat racing, which is once a year, but also we have music series. You do floating yoga, you can float on a paddleboard, you can go onto the floating pocket park. But Elizabeth Line opened about 2 months ago, opening in stages. So into journey times at the moment, these include a Bond Street stop. So at the moment it's quicker than that. When Bond Street opens, it's 5 minutes, 9 minutes, City at 11 minutes, Canary in 18 minutes. The next phase is later this year, and that is the west side through all the way down to Abbey Wood without a change. And then the final phase, which will be in sort of spring, sort of May, June next year, 2023, the whole line will be open. What's coming in Paddington? You'll have seen Paddington Square under construction. That's a fully let building, along with about 45 different F&B, including a top floor, 2-story restaurant. It provides then a new piazza at the front of Paddington Station, which you can see here, which Paddington Station has needed really. Merchant Square, which is the one that's probably you're closest to, the tallest consented building in Westminster at the moment, is 1 Merchant Square, also known as the Cucumber. And that's got 2 different consents, 1 for resi with hotel and 1 for just resi. Also to follow is 2 and 6 Merchant Square, and that's going to be the most sustainable building. They're re-looking at the building in terms of sustainability. That's commercial. 5 Kingdom Street, which is a British Land scheme, which you can see from the Westway as you come into Paddington. Again, all commercial.
I'm here to give you an update on London, what's been happening in the housing market. But firstly, I thought I'd zoom straight in on W2. And the market has been pretty busy. So we've seen sales prices up around 4%, and rents too are up by around 6%. It's come back very strongly, and we're seeing demand for rental properties increase pretty significantly. And sales have increased too. So if you look at sales in W2 so far this year, so this is properties that have exchanged up until, I believe, about 4 days ago, they're looking like about 17% up on what we were seeing pre-pandemic in 2019. Because you can see sort of W2 there surrounded by areas of higher value. And I think this is, with everything that's going on, and the previous presentation, there's so much going on, there's so many new schemes. Actually, what we're looking at is the potential for W2 to see increases in value so that it could compete with some of these higher value neighbours. So if you look to the left, you've got Kensington and Notting Hill, and then up to the north, you're moving into sort of St John's Wood and Hampstead, and obviously towards the West End as well. So this sort of pocket within an area of very high value, and we think this definitely sort of adds to the potential for Paddington and W2 over the coming years. So interestingly, what people are looking for, this measures what's more important now than pre-pandemic. Energy efficiency and running costs, top of the list, perhaps unsurprisingly. Also, people are looking for outside space, both private and shared. Space for a home office, again, unsurprising. People are working more from home. And also access to quality pubs, bars, restaurants in their local area. And obviously West End Gate sitting sort of equidistant between Regent's Park and Hyde Park, as well as everything that's in and around the scheme. It looks pretty well located in terms of being able to benefit from that sort of slight change in what people want from where they're living. London is a familiar city for overseas investors. They do business here, their children might be at school here. So it's a familiar place to invest. It's politically pretty stable. It's got a strong financial sector, and people trust the UK and the UK economy, which I think is really important, particularly in times of global economic uncertainty. And also some of the fundamentals of the London market. So the fact that actually we've got, pretty sustained long-term housing undersupply, which supports growth in prices and rents, is something that is, adds a sort of an extra layer of certainty for those people who are potentially looking to invest, particularly from overseas. There obviously are some challenges at the moment. There's obviously concerns over what's happening with inflation, interest rates, energy costs. But I think to sort of counter that, we've got a situation where the level of properties on the market, both new and second-hand, is lower than it has been in the recent past. So there's not a huge amount of stock out there for people to choose from. And also, you're looking at a situation where you've got demand from domestic buyers and also demand from overseas, and we're starting to see that filter back through, but there's a significant pent-up demand from overseas buyers. So, whilst there are these concerns, obviously also, tragically the war in Ukraine and also the impact of COVID as well, we're pretty confident about where the market's going over sort of the medium to long term. This chart here just looks at the change in house prices over the last few years. The red line here is UK and the black is London. If I'd have spoken to you in March 2020 and said that house prices nationally were going to be more than 20% up in 2 years' time, I think I probably would have been laughed out of the room, but this is actually what's happened. We've seen prices, actually there's some new numbers that came out just after I produced this, which I think they're looking at about 22% growth in prices nationally compared with pre-pandemic. London is lagging a little bit behind, I think because it didn't see that, the boost from this sort of escape to the country that we saw in sort of 2020, 2021. But actually, I think potentially for investors, this is a bit of an opportunity, because I think that London has been lagging, and I think there's a chance now that we're going to see London catch up. So I would imagine that this gap will narrow over the next few months. If you took the UK out of this equation, 10% growth in London, and I think that the annual average is something like sort of 8 or 9%. Is in any other year would be considered relatively high growth. It's just the fact that lots of the other regions are doing 12, 14, 15%. That London looks lower, but I think there's a window of opportunity here, and there's potential to get into the London market before we start to see prices rise again. At JLL, we've seen almost an 8% annual change in the price of new homes reserved. So prices we're getting now are higher than we were getting last year, and the number of reservations so far this year, again this was up until about a week ago, up about 45% on where we were in 21. And slightly higher than we were seeing in pre-pandemic in 19. So activity is definitely returning on the new home side. Overseas students too are on their way back. We've seen the number of applications increase over time, and around a quarter of all of our central London tenants at JLL are students. So we're seeing a lot of student demand coming through, which is really supporting rents. This chart here just looks at what has actually happened with the rental market. Annual growth in rents, sort of 14, 15% over the last 12 months. So pretty significant increases coming forward. A lot of that is to do with lack of stock across the London market, which means that we're seeing competition and rents rise. And the sales market too is actually pretty busy. It's the highest second quarter we've seen since 2015 if you take out last year. So the market is busy, people are buying, and this is something that we're expecting to see this increase. And on the new home side, we're seeing fewer properties start, and I think this is going to continue as we move forward with issues over build costs, actually getting the materials in the first place, and also finding people to build these properties. There's going to be a sort of a difficult 2 to 3 years, I think, in terms of new development activity, which means that schemes that are nearing completion or able to offer units will arguably be more scarce. So I think that we're potentially looking at a situation where we'll see fewer new homes coming forward. So those homes that do come forward that do fit those criteria that we talked about earlier will be pretty high demand, which all feeds into our outlook for the next 5 years in terms of prices and rents. We're expecting around 17% growth in rents and just shy of 23% growth in prices. We're expecting London to be one of the best performers over the next 5 years, partly, as I said earlier, because it hasn't seen that significant growth that some other markets have seen over the last sort of 18 months or so. And this is my last slide. It's a valid point, particularly for overseas investors, is to look at actually there's a house price play to make here, but there's also a currency play. And if you look at the value of the dollar against the pound, A pound currently buys you just under 1.2 US dollars. This is down from just shy of 1.5 pre-EU referendum. But actually this is Oxford Economics forecast, and they're expecting that by 2024 the pound will have strengthened against the dollar, so it'll be around 137, and by 2026 will be 145. So if you're buying in dollars now, even if house prices go nowhere, which is not what we're forecasting at all, you could see a 15% increase in value in dollar terms, and by 2026 a 22%. And obviously if you add in house price growth on top of that, you're looking at a pretty decent return.
The scheme itself is a collection of Manhattans 1, 2 and 3, and then some 2 4-bedroom penthouses at the top of the Westmart Tower. 644 apartments in total across 5 buildings for private residential. Really good transport links here. We're obviously on the Berkeley, the Circle District and Hammersmith and City lines. And as Kay has described, we're obviously very close to Paddington and Crossrail. So in general, a very, very good location for anyone looking to buy kind of in the London market. We've got a range of facilities in there, including a swimming pool, spa and treatment rooms, 24-hour concierge. We've got the gym, with a little spinning studio, residence lounge, cinema, everything that you could possibly need in a development right on your doorstep. Specifically at West End Gate, we are an established development, so the development, as you can see, is many of the buildings are already finished. We have a really active community here. We've got over 200 completed properties, which means we've got a range of tenants, we've got owner-occupiers, all different ranges and walks of life, which is really nice, a really nice buzzy feel in the development. So it's a nice, you're not buying and it's just empty kind of construction site. There's lots going on here already. Value for money, so again, West End Gate, being when we first launched, we were kind of at the beginning of the whole area in terms of regeneration and new build developments. We average about £1,700 per square foot on our asking prices. If you were to go even further down Edgware Road towards Marble Arch, you're looking at a 30 to 100% increase on asking prices there. So if you look at that comparatively, you're still buying at a very, very good point in the area in terms of kind of the value that you're getting for your money here compared to some of the newer projects down the bottom of closer to kind of Marble Arch. Another thing to note that I think is quite key is service charge. People are always quite keen to see what the service charges are and compare that to other developments. Ours is £5.99 per square foot for all of the amenities on offer. You can often see the same amenities or even less for £6, £7, £8. So again, I think you're getting kind of good bang for your buck out of the service charge that we have on offer here. Potential investment, so again, we've covered a few things already today about why now's a great time to buy. The rental demand here, as Marcus touched upon, is so strong. I don't think we've seen any development or area have such a strong and competitive rental market. Any unit that comes available to rent in that tower is gone within a day or two. So that's perfect for someone looking for an investment and wants to immediately make a return on their money. And at the moment, based on asking prices, we're looking at a 3.4% kind of average yield. We kind of bookend the Marble Arch end of the Regeneration and Church Street. If you buy at this point in this development, you're buying at that early stage. Prices are probably going to increase, as we've seen. So that kind of leads me on to the Church Street regeneration. So a bit of an image here in terms of what that whole Church Street regeneration looks like. It's a really large regeneration scheme. It will be probably take 15, 20 years. Lots more, I'm sure, will change over time. It's a 40% increase in accessible space. I know one of the key things is to add more pedestrianisation, green spaces, kind of take some of the cars out of the road, and really just make it a much more enjoyable place to walk through. 1,750 new homes, so again, great for the market in general. Paddington Green Police Station, so we'll briefly touch upon this. People may or may not know that Berkeley, we own the land in front of the West End Gate development, and we are looking to turn that into a new development which will be linked to West End Gate. It's currently going through all of the planning trials and tribulations, so it's kind of up in the air in terms of what it will finally look like. But the current scheme offers 566 new homes. It's got three new buildings, beautiful architecture, very in keeping with what's already been built in West End Gate. Improved realm with new shops, cafes and open spaces. So the link kind of from Newcastle Place over to Paddington Green will be a lovely green area. And again, nice places to sit, have your coffee and have a wander round. improve pedestrian and cycle routes, and then we are planting over 120 new trees with a 6,000% biodiversity net gain. This is what we're hoping it will look like. So these are some CGIs of the future phases, but again, really big focus on kind of a central piazza and just getting people to sit and go outside and use the open spaces a little bit more. But I think that's it from me.